walk the aisles at the grocery store, I'm always looking at the different foods to see which ones I could make into cake. And every time I pass the meats, I always think that a raw beef cake would make for a really neat cake. I have put this off long enough. Today is the day I'm gonna make it happen. My name is Natalie Sideserf, and I make cakes that don't look like cakes. And today, I'm going to show you how I made a raw steak cake. I got myself this ribeye from my local grocery store. And no, this video is not sponsored. I just really enjoy these steaks. And rather than just make the steak, I'm going to make the steak in its packaging. And that means I get to make edible plastic. So let's start with that. I'm sprinkling gelatin over water and I let it bloom for 5 minutes. And while we wait, I'm taping a clear sheet of acetate to a sheet cake pan. I tape it to a pan so I can pick it up and move it while it dries overnight. I microwaved that gelatin mixture and I'm pouring it over the acetate. I'm using an offset spatula to spread that gelatin nice and thin. I gotta work fast because that warm gelatin is gonna cool really quickly on that sheet pan. And then it starts to thicken and things get goopy and it just doesn't spread thin. I've got a few unwanted bubbles, but overall, I think it looks pretty smooth. Now let's bring out the star of the show, the cake. I'm filling this cake with lime green buttercream so that it looks just like my logo. Most of my cakes use green buttercream, and that's why. I made a stencil in the shape of the real steak. I place it on top of my cake, and then I cut around it. Pro tip. Use a stencil anytime you can, because that's gonna save you a lot of time. And time is valuable when you're working with cake. This doesn't last very long. Then I cover it in a layer of buttercream. If you like this video, and subscribe to this channel, and share it with your friends, because that's the best way that you can help me continue to make these videos. I'm rolling out modeling chocolate, the color of a raw steak. Then I cover the cake.
Oh my.
This ribeye steak is from the rib section of the cow, and it has a boatload of marbling, which makes the steak juicy and flavorful, and I'm really excited to eat it. I need to add some fat to this steak, so I'm adding lumpy chunks of white modeling chocolate. We've got rough areas, thick, deep lines, some sharp edges, and some bumpy bits. It's got it all. For the top of the steak, I'm adding a few thicker areas of fat, and then there's some thin linear pieces. Adding this fat takes a while, and it's repetitive. I just gotta focus and get in the zone. After about an hour or so, my steak is full of fat, and I can move on. I'm warming the chocolate and adding texture with a sponge tool. This cake's gonna be really fun to paint. I've got brown, orange, yellow, and green, and red. And I'm mixing up a maroon color, some meat juice. The color's diluted, so it's similar to watercolor paints. I let the color seep into all the cracks, and I have to admit, it's looking pretty cool. I put so much effort into adding texture to my cakes, and the food color really makes it pop. This part never gets old. To add highlights, I just wipe away some of that food color with a damp paper towel. Would you look at this? This right here is my favorite part about this cake. I spread the white modeling chocolate so thin that it's slightly translucent and it's letting some of that red peek through. I'm emphasizing a few fatty areas with a little ivory food color. There are some really thin lines of fat on the real steak, so I'm painting them in with a thin brush. The easiest way to make a styrofoam tray is by using a styrofoam tray. I clean this tray really well. I place a layer of white modeling chocolate over the real tray, and I trim away the edges. I'm looking at the tray, and I'm looking at the steak cake, and I don't think this is gonna work. Let's get a quick measurement of the tray and the steak, and I'm right. I messed up. Because I used the inside of the tray as a mold, it's slightly smaller than the real tray, and the steak doesn't fit. I'm gonna need a bigger tray. First, I gotta get this darn chocolate off of here. So what do? I'll just flip it over. I'm using the outside of the tray as a mold rather than the inside so that the tray is larger. I'm glad I noticed that right away because this tray needs to sit for a few hours to firm up. I would have been pretty bummed if I waited 2 hours, found out the tray was too small, then had to make a new one and wait another 2 hours. The edible plastic is completely dry, but the tape peeled away from the pan, and now my plastic's wavy. This is double whammy. Double whammy of bad luck. That's okay, you guys. I'm gonna make it work because I don't have the time to wait for another sheet to dry. It's wavy, but I still think it's gonna work for this cake. The styrofoam is looking good. I'm painting it with shimmery white food color to brighten it up. Now let's assemble the cake. I place the steak cake on top of the tray, and it fits. thank goodness. Then I wrap the outside of the cake in the edible plastic. I seal it up with a little water. Then I fold those corners. And last, I'm adding an edible label that I printed out using a sugar printer. And there you have it, a raw steak cake. 100% edible, 100% odd. I'm gonna eat this cake right after I eat the real steak. Now let's cut the cake. What do you guys think about this cake? Is it a little too weird, or would you eat it? Let me know in the comments. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel for a brand new realistic cake every week. And I will see you next week for another cake.